Should I just go? Monsters aren't born, they're made. We make them. All of our monsters are human-made. We make them out of the things we're afraid of. We make them out of the things we hate. In our past, we became fearful as an evolutionary mechanism for survival. Don't go in the cave. It's dark. There could be something in there that will eat you. It's a human coping mechanism. This notion of things that are out of control, things that we can't control. It just seems to be hardwired into the human psyche.
Yeah, that's me.
Did kind of tell you why I was calling?
Well, he said you're making a documentary. You want to talk about Spy Rock or something?
He mentioned that, that you'd be a good guy to talk to about kind of Spy Rock and Mendo and the scene. And...
Yeah, I don't think it's a good idea for me to go on camera or be in some kind of a movie.
A confidential source told me that in 1993, the word on the mountain was that had a hand in the murders of 3 farm workers from Mexico at a dope patch off Spy Rock Road. Subsequent to that, Ghost Dance told me that was pulled in for questioning by the Mendocino County Sheriff's Office regarding a different murder at a dope farm off Spy Rock Road that occurred in 2013.
How long have it, are you still based in Mendo now?
Yeah, I've been for quite a while.
Yeah, when did you first get there, man?
I get around, but I've been keeping busy with one thing or another in those mountains since 91.
Would Spy Rock be a dangerous place for my crew and I to just go and start trying to get interviews?
I definitely wouldn't advise you go up to Spy Rock trying to figure anything out unless you have an invitation. Spy Rock's the kind of place where it's not really a good idea to go ride around asking questions.
Came across to me like somebody that's experienced with handling interrogations, somebody that knew how to issue a veiled threat.
Okay, let me ask you one more thing, man. I mean, one of the stories I heard when I was working at that farm was about a triple homicide around Spy Rock Road in October, November of 1993, where one version of the story is that an actual Sasquatch did it. Do you know anything about that?
I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about.
Okay. All right, man. Well,
Just got out of a meeting with a source on Spy Rock, and dealing with all these dopers up here. It's such a nest of vipers. It's hard to know what to believe or how to gauge the truth. And one quality I'm looking for is consistency of information. There's certain things that keep coming up. 3 guys from Mexico, Hell's Angels, from sources in different towns, from different generations. These common threads keep coming up. Now, twice in the last 72 hours, from 2 different individuals, I've heard that yes, 3 men were murdered on Spy Rock in the fall of 1993. And they were murdered on orders from a powerful grower up here on Spy Rock. The first source says the guys had gotten killed because they had gotten a local girl strung out on heroin and meth. The source today just said, quote, they fucked with the wrong guy's daughter and it got him killed. So that's just another angle to explore and keep an eye and ear out for it. Thanks for agreeing to do this, man. I appreciate it. So I met with this Mendocino County investigator who's only willing to talk to us if his identity is protected because he's got a contract out on his life because he killed a cartel operative in a shootout. I asked you when we met, I want to make sure about a guy named...
Yeah, I didn't know him.
Okay.
That's the problem the first week. So many people came in. Now, there's hundreds and hundreds of people out there doing it. Spy Rock Road was probably one of the first commercial areas to grow marijuana in our county. Started out first being like a hippie area, and then it's developed more and more criminal enterprise type people.
I wasn't there when these events took place, but from people I knew there, they told me the story that probably one of the first people here to run a bigger operation was a guy they called Bigfoot, who was up on Spy Rock, a legendary guy.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Had all his family riding around in off-road vehicles with, had football fields of pot. He was the legendary big man on the mountain. So there was a common terminology, anything that went awry. Oh, Bigfoot did it.
I'm realizing that I was involved in the triple homicide up on Spy Rock in the fall of 1993. One possibility is that he was following orders or acting on behest of somebody, or maybe just trying to curry favor with someone much higher up the food chain. By reputation, would Bigfoot have been the kind of guy that would get somebody else to do a killing for him?
Once again, I don't know, but that's not at all what I got from the people there. It was totally copacetic, but it was like, don't come up here and mess with us.
I was thinking back to that night in the cabin in 1993, and did I hear them say, a Bigfoot killed those guys? Or did I hear them say, Bigfoot killed those guys? Because memory's tricky like that. And I don't know. Could they have said, I'm telling you, Bigfoot killed those guys? Yeah, maybe. Maybe. So have you ever heard of an old-time grower who also had property on Spy Rock in the early 1990s who goes by the nickname Bigfoot? When I lay this story on this cop about an old-time grower on Spy Rock known or nicknamed as Bigfoot, without missing a beat, he's like, that sounds like Bigfoot Gary.
There's a guy named Bigfoot Gary. He's been growing marijuana up in that area for at least 20 plus years. 1999, we served a search warrant. Seized several hundred marijuana plants. Which I later learned was only the tip of the iceberg out there. What he was growing.
Right now, there are snitches in and around Laytonville, California, who are asking around on my behalf about Bigfoot Gary, about Hell's Angels, about murders. One thing that would make me feel a lot better is if I were able to find somebody that put Bigfoot Gary together. If I find somebody, whether cop or crook, that says, hey, yeah, when I was a young guy in the early 90s, he worked for Bigfoot Gary, fuck, man, that would be huge. One other thing I would really like to know is why they pulled in and searched his property in relation to the 2013 murder of Hugo Lea Lopez. Okay? Why did they key in on him? Did they actually think that he had anything to do with it? I'd really like to know that.
There's some parallels between his murder and the original case in 1993, in that he was a Mexican national on Spy Rock Road, and in both cases, you know, there were harvested plants cut down but not stolen, so it didn't look like a ripoff. Granted, there's no indication that a Sasquatch did it, but you strip that away and there's a lot of similarities.
Mi tío Hugo era alto, delgado, le gustaba reírse. A veces se enojaba, pero así era su forma de ser. Se portaba bien con mi tía Aris, con sus hijas. Él estaba ahí para apoyarlas en todo. Eso quería dedicarse él a plantar las marihuana pero él nunca pensó de las consecuencias. Mi tío Hugo me decía, tú sigue trabajando, tú cuando crezcas disfruta de tu vida. Que no han atrapado a la persona, yo sí tengo miedo. Y mi familia también.
David? Hey,
how are you?
Okay, thanks.
See you.
You want to put a mask on? You want it? Be all right if I record this?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, thanks.
I came in the fall of 13 after this case had kind of slowed down, and then the next group of cases come in, as they always do. I've been in communication with the family. I began to get in communication in 14 when I started to follow up on the case, and she was the only Spanish-speaking detective at the time, so when she would call, I'd be the one that would talk to her. Then that's his wife. And, you know, we've talked a bunch, and she had some information that she provided. There's obviously some suspicions of close contacts with him, but there was never any ability to tie anybody down to anything.
Didn't somebody in his family call and say Hugo's dead up there in a tent?
I think so. I think that's how it played out. There was no discovery of his death. There was, this is where he's at and he's dead. Yeah. And then they go up and they discover him in the tent. If you know Spy Rock, I mean, you're so far out there, you got to know where you're going. You don't randomly fall on a tent. So whatever it was a target, because it wasn't like I was the only dope grower around. There were other ones in the area.
He was targeted.
It had to have been.
How hard is it for you to investigate a homicide where, like, the victim is an undocumented, worker?
Oh, it's difficult. With the growers' cases where you have Hispanic workers, it's extremely difficult. We probably have more bodies than we could even count right now up in the hills.
A lot of unreported murders.
Oh, I'm sure there are. A lot of unsolved. It's pretty bad. And it's not because we're not trying, it's because we don't have the cooperation from the community in a lot of them. Especially with marijuana grows, who's going to be willing to talk to us?
How are Mexican immigrants perceived in Mendocino? What's like the level of just out-and-out racism in Mendocino County, do you think?
The voice that's being put out there right now, well, all Hispanics are dope growers. Well, it's not true. My dad came here back in the late 60s. Where I grew up, my family and a couple others were some of the first Hispanics in the valley. And there was definitely racism then. And I don't know who you've talked to. I can imagine that the Hispanic growers may not be as open and forthcoming to you as the old white to be dope growers. They don't talk to me, and I'm Hispanic. I've got another Hispanic deputy. We try our best, but there's that fear of being in the black market and not wanting to get in trouble for what they're doing.
Right.
Hugo's murder is going to be a tough case to solve because of what he was involved in, because of where it happened. I have no doubt that there are a number of people who live and grow dope on Spy Rock Road that know exactly who killed Hugo and why. I have of equally little doubt that none of those people would ever give it up to law enforcement.
Unfortunately, in our county, the last time I looked, there were at least 6 not only unsolved homicides where we don't know who the victim was because there's no fingerprints on file with the Department of Justice. In America, they've never been reported missing. We've collected the DNA on these people, but DNA only works if you have something to compare it to. I have walked into marijuana gardens where there's a dead Hispanic on the ground with no identification, no tattoos, and nobody in the area knows who he is or how he got there. We have a guaranteed anonymous tip line, 707-234-2100, that we would welcome information on. Because solving a homicide is important for the family, for law enforcement, and for the victim.
Okay. This Mendocino County Sheriff's Office investigator put me in touch with longtime resident of Laytonville, longtime small-time grower on Spy Rock. As I got within about 10 feet of the pickup, I could smell meth. Meth has a very distinctive, sickly, sweet, sort of burning plastic smell to it. Offered to buy her a drink at Boomer's. She said no, she didn't want a drink, and then she offered me a hit of meth. So I said no thanks. And then she said that she wanted to get in my car and talk.
Kelly, are you looking for Kelly?
Well, I keep coming across the name of a guy nicknamed Bigfoot.
Oh, yeah. Gary. His name is Gary. He has property on Whitman. Way back there, he's got property out on Spiral. He's a big grower, yeah.
Why is he nicknamed Bigfoot, do you know?
Because he has big feet, and he likes to run around barefoot. It says he gave him the nickname Bigfoot Gary.
There's a guy by the name of Hugo Lea Lopez that was killed on Spy Rock in 2013. He was a Mexican guy that was shotgunned. He was like guarding a farm up there.
Which farm?
I don't know. Trying to find out more about that and the connection between that case and a triple murder that I've heard about that happened in 1993 on Spy Rock near Iron Mountain.
That's what killed me. Because the murders my son witnessed. Maybe that's why. Maybe there'll be closure now. My son told me a double homicide up there somewhere at the joints, Spy Rock. And he was only 5 years old at the time, first day of kindergarten. He saw these 2 men get shotgun at the property his father was staying at. It's close enough range to where It got some of the blood splatter on his face and on his mouth, and he tasted it. But I always wanted to find out who they belonged to, these people. There were somebody's babies, somebody's kids, husbands, boyfriends, brother, you know, son. But I don't know if that's any of what you were talking about or anything like.
I think that's why he wanted us to talk, yeah.
I'm so glad. The last I heard her name, Martinez.
And that was one of the guys who got killed?
Somebody, yes, I don't know. First name, last name. Yeah.
It's about 3 a.m., about 10 hours after I met with on the parking lot of Boomers, and maybe no contact high, like a tweaker contact high, because I can't sleep. Sort of tossing and turning, my mind spinning in circles, going over what she laid on me in the car, and looking over the notes I scrawled down as soon as she and I parted ways. Could this be the one? Could we be talking about the same murder? I mean, obviously Spy Rock Road, 1993, is a very violent place, okay? There's probably multiple homicides that have gone unsolved. The biggest discrepancy, of course, being that she said that it was 2 men that were killed rather than 3. But the location's right. The one other detail that she seemed certain on was that the name of one of the men that was killed was Martinez. I don't know. I mean, I guess the next step is to really pin her down on the date.
Some of the things he'd be saying is like, you know, he would like it, what it says, you know. If going public with it, kind of like, they would never done that.
You want to tell me about the crime that your son witnessed in the 1990s? Are you sure that he told you it was 2 guys?
Yeah, he told me 2.
Do you remember what year that was?
It was 96.
96?
Mm-hmm.
You sure?
I believe so, yeah. He was born in 91. I'm pretty sure it was 96, yeah.
Fuck, man. You know, once we started probing further, it turned out that it was off by a couple years. So, different multiple homicide on Spy Rock Road. Unsolved, unreported, bodies buried in the woods.
Why are there so many missing people in Mendocino County?
I don't know. Too many. I think they come up here to seek fame and fortune sometimes and don't know what they're getting into. Some people I hear, some growers, they hire them, use them all up and dispose of them. It's just cutting costs. It's terrible, it's greedy. They belong to somebody. It's horrible.
This place is fucked up beyond belief. People pass through here and they just see how beautiful it is in terms of the natural environment. They have no idea the shit that goes on in this area. The rate of missing persons cases in Mendocino County and all throughout the Emerald Triangle is per capita the highest in the United States by far. You hang out in these dope towns, and all around you are signs about missing people, billboards and flyers and coffee shops and grocery stores and bars. I mean, just dozens, hundreds of them. And all those missing persons flyers are literally signs that there are monsters among us.
Look, I learned when I was still a little boy that monsters are real, and they will hurt you, okay? But real-life monsters aren't huge and hairy with fangs. They're smiling and friendly, until they're not. So I'm attuned to monsters, and the more time I spend in the Emerald Triangle, the more I sense a lot of them up here, hurting a lot of people. I mean, you go asking around about 3 dead men, and the question you get back the most is, which 3 dead men?
Over time, the big cry was, we want to stop the violence in cannabis by legalizing it. In truth, since legalization, the violence has escalated hundreds of folds, not a little bit. The laws and the way they've carried them out have been so draconian. The black market is 5 times bigger than it was a couple years ago, and the white market's a mess. When you take the lifestyle away and you crush all the little people for corporate, it becomes something different, and it has that curse on it. And so all of this has created feuds and violence.
You guys know a guy named Bigfoot Gary? Lives around here? No? You ever heard of Bigfoot Gary?
Never heard of him. Are you a Bigfoot hunter?
I guess I am if I'm looking for a guy named Bigfoot Gary.
Now I've kind of got target lock on Bigfoot Gary. I really want to meet him and to like look in his eyes and put this story to him, because I feel like I'd know. I'd know whether or not he was involved.
Question for you. I'm a documentary filmmaker, and I'm looking for somebody who lives around here, and I heard he's a regular here, being Bigfoot Gary.
Yeah.
You know Bigfoot Gary?
I know Gary.
Do you know how to get a hold of him?
I don't,
Does he live around here?
he does.
Let me leave you my number, and if he comes in tomorrow morning, or if you see him, or you see anybody that knows how to get a hold of him,
I will give it to,
I don't know anything about him. Is he a nice guy? I just, I'm not from here, so I'm like, I don't want to, like, come up to somebody that doesn't know me and approach the wrong person, you know what I mean?
How's it going? Yeah. Okay, cool. Bandana works.
I feel like you're snitching now. This is weird.
Now that snitch, you're a source.
Yeah, you don't have hard facts here. This is just like, happened. We can't prove. Yeah.
When did you first meet Bigfoot Gary?
In 2006.
How many seasons did you work for Gary?
2.
What was he like to work for? What kind of a boss is he?
Pain in the ass, for sure. He's just like one of those bosses you just don't cross or piss off. I'm dying in here. It's like so hot with this shit on. Yeah.
All right, let's start over on a little different tack. How high up the food chain is he? Like, where does he fit in around here?
I'd say pretty close to the top.
You think Gary's capable of killing somebody or having him killed?
Probably have somebody else do it. I could see that. Especially if the circumstances of why. I mean, any man probably would.
Which circumstances?
That his daughter was raped by them. Yeah, I wasn't there back then, but
Take me through what you've heard.
Gary's daughter, she was pretty cool, but back then she partied a lot. She got this bulgy messed up somewhere. She was raped by 3 of them, and Gary found out about it.
They're probably still on the hill, meaning their bodies.
Most likely. I mean, there was a few excavators downhill that easily get rid of something like that.
If he had those 3 guys killed because they raped his daughter, fucking good for him, you know? As far as I'm concerned, every rapist in the world deserves to die screaming and alone and in pain in the woods. So good on Bigfoot Gary if that's what he did. If he killed these 3 guys because he's a racist fuck, you know, then he deserves more than he's gonna get. Because that means he knew a lot of white people up here would buy into the bullshit stereotype of Mexicans being rapists. And he'd get away with murder. I really want to meet him and get a gauge of what kind of monster he is.
Okay, so I just came down off the mountain, and I didn't have any cell service, so as soon as I got back on the grid, I had 2 text messages pop up, bang, bang. Both of them sent in the last couple hours from one of Bigfoot Gary's neighbors, who's relaying a message to me from Bigfoot Gary's wife.
This is David.
Hi, am I speaking with David?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is Carolyn.
Hi, Carolyn.
Hi, look, you're getting bad information from somewhere, okay? My husband wasn't around in California before '97.
Okay, he didn't have any business in Spy Rock or Mendocino in the early 90s?
Hell no.
He wasn't growing dope in Mendocino in the 1990s?
He was in the 70s, but not in the 90s.
Any idea why people would be telling me this shit?
My husband is, how should I put this? My husband is kind of a dick, okay?
Okay.
Not on everybody's Christmas list in Mendocino County. A lot of people talk shit about him, but I don't really understand why they're calling him a murderer. We've been married for 22 years, and I can promise you, he is not a killer.
Could you ask Gary if he's had a business partner or he knows anybody named?
Yeah, he knows.
Listen, is Gary sitting next to you? Could I talk to him, or are you the intermediary here?
Am I the intermediary? He wants to talk to you.
Hey, Gary.
Anyway, it sounds to me like you're tracking down an outlandish story. But the part goes like off path with him up around Woodman Canyon. And, you know, we did a little business together. You know, a couple of arrangements here and there, and that worked out to our mutual benefit.
Uh-huh.
And you know, he's notorious like me. People know him. They spread stories about him. You know, doesn't mean those stories are true.
Uh-huh.
The way I remember it, the week that you and I did together, that was back in the big money days. What are you saying about happened?
I'm looking at specifically at the fall of 1993, harvest season 1993.
You remember Bob what back then?
Weren't you on the East Coast?
Yeah, well, I've been called Bigfoot, Sasquatch, dickhead, you name it. Is any of this shit about a murder in 1993? I don't know nothing about what you're talking
A version of the story I heard was that the guy on Spy Rock nicknamed Bigfoot had killed these guys because these guys had sexually assaulted Bigfoot's daughter.
No!
No?
He only has one daughter, mine. She's born in 2000.
You did not have a daughter in 1993, Gary?
No, fuck no.
And you didn't kill anybody in 1993? Three guys from Mexico. You didn't kill anybody in 1993?
I haven't killed anybody on any occasion at any time or anything.
The rumor mill on the mountain is that Bigfoot Gary arranged to have murdered 3 guys who'd raped his daughter. The problem with that is that Bigfoot Gary didn't have a daughter in 1993. He's telling the truth about that. I checked, okay? So there's a disconnect between the word on the mountain and reality. And within that disconnect is reasonable doubt and then some. So, you hold my feet to the fire, I'm gonna say, he's not our guy. Bigfoot didn't do it. There is this elusive truth that I've glimpsed, through the trees. And it's like the same obsession that drives squatchers to spend half their lives in the woods. They do it because they're obsessed. They're convinced that they're always just one step away from getting the proof they need, right? Am I just doing the same shit? Am I just out there running around the woods, convinced that I'm just one move away from really cracking this case and being able to explain exactly what happened in 1993?
Finding Bigfoot would probably fill a hole in my life. My wish is for the world to finally have proof that this creature actually exists. I would give anything to see one. As scary as some of these stories are, and how fearful we are of that, monster in the closet, we still want to figure it out.
To have that, see, I told you I'm not crazy. I told you when I was 10 what I saw out the window, those eyes. And this is why. It's right there.
The story of Sasquatch or of man-like monsters has been with us from the very beginning. Some of the earliest literary traditions in the West, and, in the East for that matter, have included this wild man figure, a representation of perhaps our alter ego, our lost connection to wild places.
I think it's fair to say that the stories or mythologies about wild men are really more about humans.
Oh yeah, it's always about humans. It's never not about humans. It's not about the giant beast. And it gets back to this notion of things that are out of control, things that we can't control. Wild people are beyond our control. They live out in the woods. They live very different lifestyles from us. If you get too close to them, they might injure you. There are people who behave outside of what the mainstream considers normal behavior, and that's where the wild man comes from.
With these kinds of investigations, you get a lead, right? Or you see a path that you want to follow. And then you start following that path away from square one, okay? And then you wind up pretty far deep into the labyrinth. And sometimes that path dead ends. And when that happens, that's when you need to go back to the beginning. You need to go back to square one and be like, what have I missed? I've gotten the name of 2 people that I think have the number of the guy that owned the farm in '93, and I've been jamming them to pass on a message to him for the better part of a year, that I'd like to talk to him. Finally, word comes back, like, what about? And I was like, about a Bigfoot story that I heard at his A-frame cabin in the fall of '93. Word comes back, oh yeah, he'll talk to you about that.
Hello, it's David.
No names. Don't say anyone's name.
Okay.
Don't fucking put movie, whoever is editing this, I'm serious, doesn't give fucking, of any, okay, if I'm scared about it, trust me, I'm a reason to be. I get a bad vibe from that guy.
Of all the people, honestly, that I've been dealing with, he's the one that has me the most concerned. I remember 2 tweakers that stopped by the cabin. They were freaked out. They said they'd seen some bodies. They said that they'd seen Bigfoot tracks.
I'm gonna lay as much of this out for you as I am comfortable laying out.
Right.
You're only scraping the surface of the crazy at this point. That story that you heard that night, it's true.
What he tells me is that those 3 guys needed to go.
So what happened was, a group of the old-timers, they got together one night indulging in their stimulants of choice.
Okay.
This was getting on to harvest time. People are working close to 24/7. Anyone who has a proclivity for certain illegal stimulants, they're going to turn from recreational use to serious, sustained use, which of course is the, perfect recipe for all this kind of shit. The Mexicans becoming, more and more of a problem, okay? Not all Mexicans, the tough guys.
He proceeds to tell me that Mexican workers would get jobs on farms, but really it was kind of part of a campaign to, not take over, but to move in on the territory. So what they were doing is, for example, a bunch of them would get jobs, would hire on with like an elderly farmer, and just essentially just take over his operation. Just be like, this is ours now. What are you gonna do about it? Somebody at this meeting made the comment of like, fuck, I wish we had like chupacabras around here. We could scare these guys off. And that immediately someone was like, we got something better than chupacabra. And so they started introducing into this rumor-based information ecosystem of the Emerald Triangle stories about ferocious Sasquatches terrorizing farmers. And so those were the stories that I was hearing secondhand from all these farm workers, and I and everybody else that was in that scene at the time. And so that's another piece that falls into place. Things make a little bit more sense now.
Those 3 Mexicans needed to be made an example of. In a way, they made a statement. They tore down the plants and they threw them around like a huge monster had gone on a rampage, and they staged the whole thing.
And I'm like, okay, how do you make it look like a Sasquatch murdered 3 guys? He's like, bolt cutters, pickaxes, and forklifts. Meaning chop them up, run them over, bash them in.
Were you involved in that decision?
No comment.
Let me just ask you straight out, just for kind of for the record, okay? 3 men actually died in October 1993. Is that what you're saying? Okay, that the bodies that those guys who came to your cabin said they saw that night, those were actual dead bodies?
Oh, without a doubt. They had seen what they were supposed to see.
They basically framed Sasquatch for the murder. These dope growers framed Sasquatch for a triple murder.
To terrorize
guys from Mexico that were on their turf. He said that what they did is they arranged for chatterboxes, as he put it, to see the bodies. And that guy that had come to that cabin that night, the guy that was on crystal meth, he was one of the chatterboxes, all right? Because that's the way that the story would get spread, okay? The other guy was in on it too, took him up there. Holy shit, they're fucking dead. Look at their bodies. Look at these tracks, okay? Fucking Bigfoot killed these 3 guys, man. What are some of the motivations why people would make up a Sasquatch story?
Well, and this may lead us back to Spy Rock. People want to scare other people away. I know in the Amazon that many times people come up with terrible stories of monsters and ghosts and stuff, and it's to scare people away. There's something of value. It's a good fishing ground. It's a good hunting ground. So they do that to keep the other people away.
Myth is super powerful. People are afraid of the unknown. It's an ancient story from the beginning of time. Look at the propaganda in this country. Look at the propaganda around the world. I mean, we create stories. We identify the other, the immigrants. We demonize them so we can empower ourselves and maintain control over the culture.
I could see that happening just in how I knew people from that area to behave when they felt threatened by outsiders. This was obviously like a killing where people witnessed the aftermath of it and were then told to go tell people about it. And that's why I heard about it. Because if it was just about killing these guys for what they had done, no one would have heard about it, right? Plenty of people have been killed up there and buried in a shallow grave on a mountaintop and never found. They really did these guys in to send a message. There's exploitive people out here and exploitive situations waiting to happen, you know? That darkness from the mining camps and from the first logging camps that, you know, took the land away from the indigenous people. That trauma never stopped, and it just snowballed into trauma for everybody that's come since then. It gets paved over and painted over and developed over constantly, but in the more rural areas like out here, it's there, you can feel it, you know? I don't think you can stop it or erase it at this point.
This started as a ghost story about 3 guys getting killed on a dope farm in 1993. I have moved with every step of this endeavor towards believing that these 3 murders actually occurred. It's like not an easily solvable case. I mean, there was no police report, there's no bodies.
I think it's impossible that I would ever, with absolute certainty, feel like I knew exactly what had happened and why.
I at least have a story that I tell myself that makes sense now.
No, I don't fucking think Bigfoot did it. No. I don't believe in Bigfoot, but I sure as hell believe in greed. And that greed turns people into monsters. It's not Bigfoot making all those people disappear in the woods.